Welcome into Ride the Line, the greatest podcast in sports betting entertainment. My name is Tanner Kern, certified G, bona fide stud, and you can't teach that. And this right here, this is G Money Grant Mitchell. We are here breaking down the NBA playoffs and everything that happened in the sports world this weekend, which a lot was the NBA, and you can't teach that. Bada boom, man of the people in the room. Grant, welcome into Ride the Line. And are you riding today?
Thank you, Tanner. Thank you for the warm welcome. I have to say, I am riding. It was quite the weekend, quite eventful. Must have hurt to have been the sports books because you made out like a bandit. I made out like a bandit. It's just one of those weekends where the money prints itself. So yes, I'm riding into Monday. I'm feeling really good about this upcoming week.
Yeah, I'm betting with a swagger right now. I'm dangerous. Watch out. So I hit a few bets this weekend. The Mavericks obviously winning the series against the Clippers, which ultimately became no sweat. Like there really wasn't a lot of concern in any game because James Harden and Paul George never showed up when it mattered. And then I also hit the Boston Bruins to win their series against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Grant, I got so many great stories. I was sitting up in the upper deck, the rafters of the Boston Garden, and there were a bunch of Leafs fans up there going at it. And this dude next to me, he was sitting like, so I'm here, and then there's a guy to the right of me, and then there's people to the left of me who are Leafs fans. And the guy was a little older, and he walks by the dude, and he like grabs onto his girlfriend, like not in a weird way. He was like, he's old. He was like falling down.
Oh, okay.
And when he comes back with his beer, the kid's like, keep your hands up, buddy. Keep your hands up. And the guy turns to him after he sits down, and he goes, you trying to get your ass kicked? And the kid kind of gets a little afraid. And since we're both Bruins guys, he turns to me and said, who's this kid thinks he's effing with? And I'm like, he's effing with the wrong effing guy. He's like, F yeah.
You're just egging him on now.
I'm just egging him on now. And then he turns to him and this was all-time comment. He says, the best part of you dribbled down your mom's leg, buddy. I'd shut the F up.
Oh my God.
I was like, oh, you just murdered this kid. Okay. So now we got this little Toronto, he thinks he's all that. Whatever, as they talk in South Park. Then this dude just buried him, literally buried him. So shout out to all the Bruins fans. Then there were a bunch of other Leafs fans going nuts in the crowd, and we had to get security to come up. Like people are flipping each other off. When the Canadian national anthem was played, everyone was just booing. It was, and like literally like half the Bruins teams half the NHLs from Canada. So it was cool night.
How far away is Toronto from Boston?
Probably it's like 6 hours. That could be totally wrong, but I think it's about probably 6.
I was wondering if it was we saw at the Knicks Sixers, like if there was an invasion of fans, but I guess 6 hours is a good hike.
It was an invasion. There weren't a lot of fans there. I wouldn't have wanted to come there if I was a Leafs fan. Like it'd be too much for me. I mean, it's a hostile city.
Yeah, for sure, especially in the playoffs. They don't mess around up there.
No. So you won some money too, Grant.
Yes, I did. My 8-team parlay that I've been talking about on the show, I picked the winner of every series in the first round of the playoffs. That ultimately came true. Now, in hindsight, of course, I wish I bet a little bit more money on it, but came out with still a very good payout. It was plus 2,700 odds, something like that. And then I also hit a live bet for Caris LeVert, 15 plus points. That one was pretty interesting. LeVert was up for sixth man of the year. He was one of the outside candidates, like in the 5 to 7 range. Yet he was barely scored in the playoffs, but he got 6 points in like the first few minutes he was on the court. Donovan Mitchell was 2 for 9 shooting at the time. And I was like, he's got 6 points. He needs to get to 15, so he needs to score 9 more for the rest of the game. Donovan Mitchell is not shooting the ball well. So, Mitchell did obviously come alive at the end of the game, but the fact that he wasn't told me that other guys are going to take it upon themselves to step up, and LeVert's got the hot start. Like, why not? So for 15 plus points, live bet, I still got plus 700 odds, which made me wonder, what was this beforehand? Was this like plus 3,000 odds? But whatever the case may be, the sportsbooks were slow to react to that one. So I ended up taking that, and that one also hit. So yeah, made about $1,000 in profit this weekend. Can never complain about that.
Yeah, definitely. I think, some of the stuff that I see on Twitter, at least, there's a lot of markets. It just seems like there's not enough traders to control these markets. I saw one probably a week ago. It was like Anthony Edwards to record a free throw in the final 3 minutes. So this dude's like dribbling all over the place. He's driving the hoop. He's getting fouled like crazy. And you're getting like plus 2,000 odds for that. And I know it's a long shot, but some of these live betting markets, like these quick, I think sportsbooks are trying to promote like just live micro betting. Yeah. Like, small little micro bets. They can yield a huge profit, especially if you put a little down and get lucky.
Yeah, was that one you just mentioned? That's really interesting. To be honest, I didn't know that was a market, but that's something that I would definitely look into, especially in the playoffs, because these teams are going to foul late.
Yeah, if you're at the game too, those are really fun or watching it, but it's a little harder to watch and live bet micro betting because the sports book's ahead of you. If you're at the game, you have the ultimate advantage because you're seeing it happen in person where, even a TV, it's going to be at least 10 to 15 seconds delayed.
Yeah, I was having that conversation with one of my friends. He said, "Am I tripping, or is FanDuel trying to rip us off?" And he had screenshotted. You know how FanDuel, when you're in like the points or rebounds, whatever, it'll show you. I mean, it does this with all the books, but it'll show you. It'll show you how many points the player has scored, like right next to the odds value, whatever. So you would screenshot that, and then you would go over to ESPN and NBA.com, and the points values would always be different. And I was like, well, believe it or not, the sports books are updating quicker than the ESPNs and the NBA.coms because these guys, either they have people right there in the arena or they're getting real-time data and they're updating it. Like that's how they're always ahead. And he was, he didn't know that. So to what you were saying, if you're in person at the game, that's where you've got just as good of a shot as ever of winning those live bets because the sportsbooks don't have the head start like they do when you are watching at home.
And I don't know if this is true or not, but I think the sports books almost give you like an extra second. Like, so even though it's delayed 10 to 15 seconds, they still give you a little time to adjust as the bettor. Not enough to ever get it in. But if you're in the arena, I've definitely had more success live betting because I've gotten stuff in. Like you can feel the crowd in the game and you can feel how the game's about to change. And you can get it right as they change it, basically, where that locks up at home because you can't see it on television. But that's the business of sports betting. They got to make money somehow. So live betting is probably a great way to do it for the books.
Yeah, and there's so much expansion going on with gambling. Did you see that Dave & Buster's is allowing you to place money, real money, and bet on games at the arcade?
Yeah, which is pretty cool, actually. But it's also like just peer-to-peer. So if you and me were going to go play skee ball, we could just do a $5 bet through Dave & Buster's instead of just saying, hey, I'll Venmo you if you hit. So I think it's almost a good idea. I don't know if the Dave & Buster's is going to take a little cut on it. That's what I'm concerned about. Are they going to take like 30 cents for every transaction?
So the way that they're doing it is they're partnered with a company called Lucra, which is a gamification software. They conduct the transactions through their rewards app. So I think it would be maybe I send you an invite or you send me an invite, and then we say, we're betting $2.50 on this. We're betting $3 on this. There's a limit. I can't remember if it was $5 or $10 but there is a certain limit. You're not going to be having $1,000 wager matches of Basketball Connect 4, but you're going to send the offer. And then I would assume Lucra gets part of that. Either they get a part of that or they just have a deal in place with Dave & Buster's. Dave & Buster's probably does have some sort of transactional processing fee, and then you win off of that, I guess. Or I don't know how it works because again, it's in the rewards app. Like, do you have to pay for a rewards app because maybe that covers it? I don't know entirely.
It can't be much because then people are just going to bet with themselves and say, here's $5 if you win or whatever the amount is. And also $5 is the max. I'm sure there's going to be some other exchanges on the side for a lot of people too. It's probably just another way to get people in the door. I'm sure Dave & Buster's is okay fronting some money if more people are going to come in the gambling world, because if you can gamble on something, more people are likely to come in.
There's already been pushback on this, though. It was last week, I think it was Thursday, could have been Friday, but 2 days after Dave & Buster's announcement went up, some representative in Illinois introduced a bill that basically said, yeah, any family-friendly arcade venue is not allowed to offer gambling. I don't care what it is. I don't care how they want to classify it. The way they were going to, quote unquote, get away with it was them and Lucra both said that this is a game of skill. We aren't subject to the need for licensing and regulation. And technically they are right if it is a game of skill, but basically the Illinois proposal said that, yeah, this isn't going to fly. So it'll be kind of interesting to see what happens with that, if other states stick up or if Dave & Buster's has a rebuttal.
Yeah. I mean, DFS is considered a game of skill and not a game of chance. I imagine skee ball betting on yourself is definitely a game of skill. So,
I would
Jonte
smoke you with
Porter.
E-ball, by the way.
No, you wouldn't. All right, no, you wouldn't. Let's cut that off
You
right
got
there.
listen, you got offensive lineman hands. They're big and sloppy. Like, there's no way you can
What are you
control
talking
that
about?
little
I got
ball.
touch. I got touch. I used to be a quarterback before. If I wouldn't have gained weight, I would have been a quarterback. Okay. You just ran. All right. Don't I played a ball sport at least. You just ran. Get out of here. Jonte Porter is the new cover boy for that, though. Betting on yourself.
David Buster's.
Yeah. Imagine that.
Imagine he has a new commercial like, I'm Jonte Porter. I loved gambling so much that I had to change my job. And now I'm teaming up with Dave and Buster's to bring that to you. It's like one of those old used car salesman commercials.
Plot twist. He gambled himself in the NBA so he could get fired and just go bet on himself at Dave and Buster's now. That's awesome.
I mean, if you can get good at an arcade game, I mean, you could just hustle your friends there.
Yeah, it's like pool. It's like a pool hall. It's no different than that. It's just there's a transaction. We're making it safer actually now. So shout out to Dave and Buster's for making gambling safer. You guys are the real MVPs. But Grant, speaking of the real MVP, it's Anthony Edwards right now. This dude is on an absolute mission. He is crushing everything in sight. And the Minnesota Timberwolves look to go up 2-0 on the Denver Nuggets tonight. Nuggets are in trouble right now a little bit. In my opinion, at least. You have a hungry Minnesota team that's playing great with Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert. And Nikola Jokic came out and said, like, they were like, how can you get better? How can this Denver Nuggets team get better? He's like, I need a clone of myself. So that's not a good sign if you're the Denver Nuggets or Nuggets better right now.
What's weird about him saying that is that's not a Jokic thing to say. And what that tells me is he's stressed. Jokic is the guy who said, nobody likes their 9 to 5. I don't really want to play basketball. And then it was, I can't wait for the season to be over so I can disappear and go ride my horses in the summer. And you remember there was that whole thing at the start of the NBA this season with the opening day games. They had, I'm trying to remember, I think they had Curry, Durant, LeBron, and Tatum on the poster, and Jokic wasn't, even though he was the reigning finals MVP, the reigning champion. And there was this whole thing about like he doesn't love his job and blah, 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 blah. He's not the guy to go make a scene like this. So for him to say that tells me he recognizes the severity of the situation. And look, you're the Nuggets. You were 33-8 at home in the regular season. You're constantly used to battling back. You fell behind by 20 points against the Lakers. It seemed like every game you were always able to come from behind and win those games. This tells me Nikola Jokic sees this Wolves team as a very, very real threat. And Tanner, before this series started, what did I say on the show? I said it should be Nuggets in 6. That should be my pick. But I can't guarantee that because if they come out with this lackadaisical approach like they did throughout the regular season, like they did in that first round series against the Lakers, they will lose this series in 7 games. And it may be quicker than that based on what we saw in game 1.
And it's not like they played terribly, right? They still shot 46% from the field. They were 41.9% from 3. That's better than the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think the ultimate issue in this game for the Nuggets was the effort. The effort wasn't the same level as the Minnesota Timberwolves. One team wanted to come in and win the game. The other team didn't. And we know, Grant, an underdog's a hungry dog, and hungry dogs run faster. And that's the epitome of this Timberwolves team right now. Anthony Edwards, 43 points in game 1, like not afraid of the moment whatsoever. And that's probably, if I was in Nikola Jokic's shoes, or if I was a Nuggets fan or a Nuggets player, that would be my biggest concern right now. You got a dude that's playing great and a whole team that's playing great, and they have nothing to lose either. They're not expected to win. So they're just coming out and playing loose. And that can ultimately be, a saving grace for a team and a positive when you're going against a team that's kind of been there, done that, and just trying to hang on.
We want to rush greatness whenever we're talking about the NBA. We've talked about it on this show with Jason Tatum. People are saying, wow, Tatum just isn't the guy. Maybe Boston even needs to trade him because he's not going to win a ring. Well, LeBron hadn't won a ring at this age. Jordan hadn't won a ring at this age. Kobe had one, but that was with Shaq as his MVP. He hadn't won one on his own yet. So we always want to rush guys into be great or, historical, whatever it is. And with Anthony Edwards throughout the regular season, what did we constantly hear? This is the new face of the NBA. This is the guy, blah, blah. And I was saying, guys, let's pump the brakes. He's 22 years old. He's in his 3rd season. His ceiling, tremendously high, but he was probably not even a top 10 player during the regular season this year. I was saying he's in the 12-ish range. Let's keep him there. He's young. Let's allow him to grow. I want to take back everything I said based on what we've seen in the playoffs. He has been the best player in the playoffs. And not only that, he's playing with the strongest mentality out of everybody. To go on the road and just punk the Denver Nuggets. And yes, it was a close game, 106-99. But who was the best player on the court? It was Anthony Edwards by a mile. And that's with Nikola Jokic, who is about to be a 3-time MVP. Anthony Edwards scored like 15 of his team's first 20 points. In the playoffs so far, he's shooting better than 43% from three-point land. That's what we're getting a taste of, which is probably the scariest thing looking ahead to the future. Anthony Edwards shot 35% from three during the regular season. If he's going to, at any point in his career, make this jump to where he is a 40% three-point shooter, then you can't defend him. And that's what we're seeing play out right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's been fantastic. And if he continues to play at this level and the team continues to bring the intensity, I do think Denver's in trouble. As far as the series price goes right now on FanDuel, you can get -132 for the Timberwolves. You can get +108 for the Nuggets. This would be a total stay away for me if you haven't bet it yet. I don't think +108 is good enough value. I need to see how the Nuggets come out tonight. If the Nuggets go down 2-0, you might want to consider potentially taking like their series spread. But there's no value here. I don't trust -132 for the Timberwolves, a team that hasn't been there yet. Even though they're playing really well, I'm probably would lean towards the Nuggets +108, but neither side has enough value for me to take it. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that sticks out to me the most would be the Nuggets winning this game. I don't see them going down 0-2 at home, but they're -240 on the money line. I'm not taking that. And then these teams have played 5 times this season. The Timberwolves covered in 4 of them. So am I really going to lay 5.5 points with the Nuggets? No, I probably wouldn't. So, again, looking ahead to the series as a whole, I don't have a bet there. I feel strongest about the Nuggets winning game 2, and you can't bet -240 odds for a money line. So I don't think there's a bet in this series right now. Like you said, if you got the Timberwolves before it started, that's probably the best place to be. But yeah, there's nothing to say here for me.
Yeah, I want to stay in the Western Conference, Grant, looking at the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Dallas Mavericks. I believe the Mavericks, and don't quote me on this, but I think they were a slight favorite at opening. Now OKC is up to -120. Dallas is -102. I think at one point on FanDuel when I was looking at this, it was -115 when we were texting this weekend. How do you see this series playing out?
So this one's interesting. And you of course I was a big proponent of the Mavericks last series or last round. That's a big reason why you had the confidence to take the Mavericks, was because I was so bullish on them. Even when it was 2-2, I said I'm 90% confident they still win this series. I would have felt much stronger about the Mavericks in this series with the Thunder if I had not seen the last round. There are a couple of things that concern me. A lot of them have to do with Luka, who, of course, Luka playing these bad games is still a top 5 player in the world. But when you want to make a deep playoff run, you need your guy who can be the best player in the league to be the best player in the league. And he wasn't that in the first round. So he's recovering from that sprained knee. He's recovering from an illness. I do want to keep an eye on how game 1 goes to see if he looks like the usual guy that we're used to seeing. Because if he doesn't, this Thunder team, they match up very well with the Mavericks. Dallas also being dealt a blow with the loss of Maxi Kleber. That's especially big in this series, not because Kleber is the best player in the world, but the way that OKC plays, they're very small. They're going to downsize everything. They want to spread you out, and then they constantly drive and kick. Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively are excellent, and yes, they're going to be good rim protectors, but if you're going to be luring them out and then having them chase around guys everywhere, that's when you would pivot and you would go with somebody like a Kleber, and obviously he's not there for Dallas. Ultimately, I am still going to take the Mavericks probably in 7 games here, but I don't like the way that they match up with OKC. I think this one could get very hairy.
So I nicknamed the Dallas Mavericks the Dallas Ragamuffins, and for a lot of reasons. I think the supporting cast did not step up throughout the entire series. Sometimes they were really good, sometimes they were really bad. Kleber, that's a huge loss for them because he jolted them multiple times in their last series. He can make threes, and if you don't have him, that's a problem. And I think going back to like the hungry dogs run faster, similar to the Minnesota Timberwolves. OKC's hungry, and they got nothing to lose. It's a young team just having fun out there and playing. And with Dallas, Kyrie's fantastic, Luka's fantastic, but if they're both not on or they both don't come to play on the same night, it doesn't result in wins. We saw that. I mean, the Clippers did have their big shooting nights, obviously, but it also was parlayed with the fact that Luka didn't play a full game. Kyrie didn't show up for the entire game. And Kyrie was pretty great the entire series. I don't want to lie. But even when they went down, like he had a terrible first quarter, there were moments there where if you don't step up, teams will put you away. Obviously, the Clippers didn't have the team to do that. But I think OKC, being a young team, they have that caliber of talent to put the Mavericks away if Dallas doesn't come out and play their game.
Yeah, I agree with that. And what you were saying specifically on the Kyrie front, I mean, in game 6, it looked like it was going to go to game 7 for a little bit. Kyrie had 2 points in the first half. Then he scores 28 in the second half, and it's game over. So you do need Luka. You do need Kyrie to be at their best. OKC, one of their weakest points is the fact they have no size. I believe they led the league in percentage of double teams in the post. Who's going into the post for the Mavericks? It's Luka. Like you're not really posting up Derek Lively or Daniel Gafford. So again, OKC is they're just a very tough matchup for Dallas. If you're looking at things that are going to hold them back, it's their size and it's their inexperience. And again, ultimately, I trust Luka, I trust the Mavs, but this one could go 7 games probably.
Yeah, I definitely trust them too. If I'm going to pick a team, I got to go with the team that's cashed me out and help me overcome the FanDuel deficit there. So shout out to the Mavericks. Going to the Eastern Conference here, the New York Knicks are like taking over basketball right now. They're very fun to watch. They basically beat the Sixers at their own game, which was, intimidation with the fans showing up, taking over Philadelphia, which was wild. I think they should have no problem with the Indiana Pacers in this series. The Pacers play fast. They play a lot of offense. I think the Knicks are going to slow the series down and just beat them into submission. I don't think it goes close to 7 games. I think it's going to be Knicks in 6 and even potentially 5 here.
So this one's very interesting on the stylistic front for me. During the regular season, Indiana, despite playing at a crazy, crazy pace, and despite having the worst defensive rating in basketball for like 2/3, 3/4 of the year, they allowed the fewest 3-pointers per game, which is very interesting to me. Obviously, they put their focus on running guys off, and they were funneling them to the basket. But the problem was they didn't have a lot of rim protection. Even though Miles Turner can block some shots, obviously that wasn't enough to slow teams down. In the playoffs, though, that's kind of disappeared. The Pacers, of the 16 teams in the postseason, they're ranked 7th in 3-pointers allowed per game. You can say that was byproduct of who they were going against because, Milwaukee's going to take a bunch of threes. But I'm interested to see what their focus is against the Knicks because, if anything, I feel like you kind of want to let them shoot to a certain extent. Obviously, you got to shut down Dante DiVincenzo, and then you're going to have to be on Jalen Brunson no matter where he goes. But we saw it against the Sixers. Their strategy a lot of the time was, I'm going to let Josh Hart shoot this 3. OG Anunoby, we don't want to leave him wide open, but we're going to sag off of him if we need to, and then we'll let him shoot it. And then Isaiah Hartenstein, Mitchell Robinson, they're not shooting any 3s either. So on the one hand, you can allow that to happen, but then on the other, there's this matter of the Knicks are such a tremendous offensive rebounding team. Indiana's already small to begin with. Granted, the acquisition of Pascal Siakam helped them a lot, but you would look at the Pacers and the Sixers, you would say Philadelphia should be much more equipped to battle New York on the glass. And, they were dwarfed by them anyway. So I just think it's very interesting to try to imagine how the series is going to set up. And I do think game 1 is going to tell us a lot.
I agree with that, but I think it comes down to the best player on the floor, and that's Jalen Brunson. We saw it when Brunson was struggling early in the Sixers series. The Knicks were still pulling through. I don't think that's going to be the case here. I think Brunson needs to play a complete series and be great as he was down the stretch in that Sixers series because he makes the team go, especially without Julius Randle. I know Julius Randle hasn't been there in a while, but this is his team, and this is the moment where he needs to shine, and I think he's going to get it done. Looking at the regular season series between these two, the Pacers absolutely whooped them in the first game, 140-126. Knicks bounced back, won a lower scoring game, 109-105, and then the Pacers won 125-111. That was back in February. I think both teams were a little different then, and I do think it's going to be those slower paced under kind of games that the Knicks find a way to pull through.
Yeah, I'm with you. My bet here is probably going to be the New York Knicks minus a game and a half. Well, that's the bet I would take. It's minus 130 odds. I don't know if there's a whole lot of value to that. I would probably just bet it game to game. But I do see the Knicks winning this series in probably 5 or 6. Could it be different if Tyrese Halliburton was playing the way he was before he had that hamstring injury? Sure. But, if your best player is a high volume 3-point shooter, guy that's going to take like 12 a game, and he's only making 31% of them, which is about what he's done ever since he had that injury, then I just can't trust that. I also think one thing that's very interesting, and shout out to the good old Twitter for pointing this out, or at least reminding me of the fact that Rick Carlisle, the Pacers coach, coached Jalen Brunson when he was with the Mavericks, and he didn't show him a lot of favors. He played him 10 minutes at a game 7. Jalen was on the bench sometimes. He was starting sometimes, but not anywhere near a featured figure in the offense or the defense. And so with what Jalen Brunson has been doing this postseason, I think he wants to stick it to Rick Carlisle. So, yeah, I think this is another great Jalen Brunson series. And I think the Knicks are moving on to their first conference finals since, I believe, the 90s.
Yeah, I agree. And New York's going to be rocking, and their reward is the Boston Celtics, and they're just going to get absolutely dominated by them. The Boston Celtics, Grant, best team in basketball by far. We're going to talk about the future odds right now because this is a little wild to me. Even though the Celtics are the best team in basketball, there's no denying that. They have the strongest team out. Kristaps Porzingis is injured. They just told him, hey, take the series off, buddy. Go back to your homeland. Come back when we're in the Eastern Conference Finals. They're plus 105 right now to win the NBA Finals. Denver Nuggets are plus 480 just because they're down a game. Timberwolves plus 600. OKC is plus 800. Dallas plus 950. Knicks are 10-1. Pacers 46-1. And the Cleveland Cavaliers are now 65-1. Plus 105 seems a little generous for the Boston Celtics. I would not take it. I think they're going to be challenged at some point. It might be the NBA Finals. It might be a little spot in the Eastern Conference Finals at some point. But plus 105, just wild to me that is a line that's posted right now.
Yeah, I agree. It is wild. And you know this. They're not my pick to win the finals. But at the same time, I don't think the odds makers have this wrong. Because if you look at it's the same thing like the start of the NFL season. Like who's your pick to win the Super Bowl? Well, it doesn't matter who you think has a better matchup in a Super Bowl. It's which team is most likely to make the playoffs. Well, then they've got the highest chance to win the Super Bowl because you have to make the playoffs first. It's the same thing with the Celtics. Going back to round 1, I worry about them late in games. I worry about them down the stretch. Of course, I worry about them with the Porzingis injury now. But which team has the best chance to make it to the finals? It's the Celtics by far. So even though I wouldn't bet this, I can't say the odds are wrong.
Yeah, I agree in that sense. I still think plus 105, it's hard to get away with that. But even though plus 105, we're talking about in the sense of we wouldn't bet it. If they do get to the NBA Finals and they are facing the Denver Nuggets, or the Timberwolves, or the Thunder, or the Mavericks, they're going to be a favorite. There's no doubt about it. They're going to be a favorite, and they're going to be a heavy favorite. They'll probably be upwards of minus 200, I think, to win that series. So if you do anticipate them getting the NBA Finals, you might want to jump on this now, even because you're not going to get a really good number in the final series.
Yeah, and I just this series with the Cavs, the Cavs won that last series against the Magic. They had the largest comeback in Game 7 history. Donovan Mitchell scored 39 points. It was a good win for them. Orlando, I think you can make the case that, especially considering the gap in age and in experience, Orlando was the more impressive team. Were they the better team? Maybe not, but I don't think Cleveland really has a chance here. This, in my opinion, this is a sweep, maybe a gentleman's sweep, but yeah, I think Boston is moving on to the conference finals. And going back to the Knicks there, would you agree the Knicks are probably the toughest competition for Boston just because they are like impossible to put away? Even when they lose, they're going to give you hell.
I agree. I think that series would go 6 games. I think you'd have to give the Knicks 2, but I don't think it's too much for the Boston Celtics.
If Porzingis doesn't play in the conference finals, it gets very tricky, I will say, because I think he is such a huge part to the Boston team.
It is tricky, but then like when Porzingis goes out and you got guys like Derek White stepping up and just shooting the lights out of the gym, like there's so much talent even coming off the Celtics bench. It's unbelievable. Even Sam Hauser. I mean, Sam Hauser is not a featured player for the Boston Celtics. He is a lights out 3-point shooter when he's in there. I mean, it's so you just got so many pieces there. And then you got Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown just to top it off, who can't dribble to one can't dribble to his left. Then you have Drew Holiday. There's so many dudes in this lineup. Even Peyton Pritchard. I mean, talk about Peyton Pritchard. Like he can still ball a little bit. So many dudes.
Yeah, he can. Like we said, they are the best team in basketball. I just worry about them in the big moments of the big games. And there's no way to there's no way to really forecast that or analyze it. Just kind of got to see if it happens or not. Because we know it's happened in the past. It's just, have they finally figured it out?
Yeah. Oh, I saw Peyton Pritchard out at the bar this weekend. I was out to dinner, and Peyton Pritchard was there with his homeboys. His posse looks like a bunch of frat boys. It's pretty cool.
He looks like a frat boy.
Yeah, and my buddy next to me is like, I heard Peyton Pritchard's like an a-hole, and I'm like, dude, he's 5'11", he's white, and he plays in the NBA. Like, come on, like you need a little edge to yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. Like you said, like that's what I would expect. Yeah, you're not going to make it to the league if you're not.
No, definitely not. But anyways, Grant, that was Ride the Line. Any other thoughts before we sign off here?
No parlay for the second round, partially because the scheduling didn't line up. The odds also aren't great. So sorry, everybody. No parlay.
No parlay. My parlay is the Boston Celtics are going to win the whole thing because the Celtics are the balls. That was Ride the Line. Greatest podcast in sports betting entertainment. Make sure you click the subscribe button, guys, and the bell and get notified anytime we post an episode Mondays and Thursdays. And Grant, why don't you take us out of here?
That's going to do it for this episode of Ride the Line. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We will catch you all on the next episode. Keep riding.